Oh, thanks for remembering that, Emily.
No problem.
All right. Well, we have 71 registered, but I think we probably ought to get started because I know we have a lot on our list today.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. This is Brooke Lovelace. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. We're glad to have a great group of people here today. We are going to focus most of our day on employment, but we do have a guest speaker we're going to get started with here in just a second. Just some housekeeping things. We do have an interpreter, sign language interpreter with us, and I believe you can also access closed captioning down there on the bottom. I believe, if I can see it. Yeah, you should be able to do that. If you're having any issues, please put that in the chat. But with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a guest speaker here with us today. We have Danielle Workman from Disability Rights Iowa. She's the public health advocate there. And even though we're going to focus most of our day on employment, community integration is also something that we're very passionate about. And she's going to talk a little bit about a research project that Disability Rights Iowa is doing. Danielle, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Brooke, and thanks everyone for giving me the time and space. It's going to be a very brief overview of what we're working on and what I'm asking for. But at DRI, we are engaged in a research project about involuntary discharge, and we're specifically focused on home and community-based settings, so HCBS 24-hour homes, waiver home, group homes. A lot of people, refer to them by different names, but we are very specifically focused in this research project about the HCBS 24-hour homes. So we do understand that involuntary discharge happens in a lot of settings, but this research, like I said, is specific to the waiver homes. So we're looking at this topic through the lens of due process rights and housing rights and how involuntary discharge intersects with these rights. And so we are specifically looking to get stories or to talk with people about their experiences. So part of our ask today is if you yourself or someone you know has been impacted by involuntary discharge from a group home setting, the HCBS settings, I would love to hear from you. Part of this research is going to be largely based on the experiences. So we're trying to understand the scope of the problem, how severe is this, how often this is occurring, and then depending on what we gain from our research, that'll inform future work. But until we get kind of a full scope and conduct this research project, we're still just looking at gathering information to understand it better. So what you see below is a link on the slide to Alchemer. It's a website we use to host our surveys. So you can choose to submit your story anonymously if you would prefer not to share your own information, but at the end, it will ask for contact information if you would like me to contact you. The survey, you can also contact me directly, which when I'm done speaking, I will drop some of my contact information into the chat. So you have that and you can share that. And essentially, I can accommodate any kind of communication preference that anybody might have. So again, I'll be sharing my contact information, but this survey link is on our website. You can follow this survey. There's a lot of ways to get to me, but the survey is very brief. It just kind of helps you organize your thoughts about and kind of lets you know what I'm going to ask about. So that's really the crux of it. Like I said, I'll just recap really quickly. We're just looking at this through a disability rights lens and how these things intersect with housing and due process. And so we want to hear from people. So that's my big ask, is just that I want to hear from folks so that I can understand their experience and use that to help inform our research. So that's really the crux of it. We don't have a lot of time for questions, but if there's any initial thoughts about what I'm asking for, you can either ask now or just drop it in the chat or private message me. And I'd be happy to have separate discussions with everyone.
Thanks so much, Danielle. And I think then now we're turning it over to Carlin.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Carlin Crow. I'm the Public Policy Manager with the Iowa DD Council. Welcome. We're glad that you're here today. And we're going to talk about, first of all, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is in October, which is just 2 days away, which is a little bit unbelievable. But our promotion, it's a national promotion that many organizations are doing, and spearheaded by a lot of DD councils. The idea is to showcase both employees and employers. So we want to know where people are employed, and we want policymakers to know what employers are also employing people with disabilities. So our actually program for the month is called it's called Take Your Legislator to Work Day. And what we are asking our advocates to do is to invite, you don't have to actually take your legislator to work, but you can invite them to visit you at your place of employment. And the idea is for them to get to know what kind of jobs are out there for people with disabilities, who is employing, and just to hear your story about why work is important to you and what it does for you, your life, your family, and how it enhances both the community and what you're working on in your journey. So we have help for you to do this if you're interested in inviting your legislator to work. And it's on our website. There is a sample ask for you to send to your legislators, so that we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to invite them. Of course, you need to know who they are. And if you don't know that, we also have links that you can quickly look up who your legislators are. And this is a great way to get to know them, and also tell them your story about and through employment. We also have help in helping you set up those meetings too, if you're interested. I think we have about 10 or 15 people already who have let us know that they're inviting their legislator to work. Oh, and also the thing I wanted to mention is if you happen to work remotely, or spend most of your day working out of home, or maybe in coffee shops because you work remotely, then invite your legislator to coffee, maybe at a coffee shop. Or if you'd like to invite them to your home, that's appropriate also. But you can meet them in a neutral place and just, again, share your story and what you do and how it works for you. And of course, we like photographs that we can use and share with our advocates and with everybody that's connected. And we would want to promote your story with them also. So we invite you to do this, or please pass this along to others that you work with for whom this might be a great opportunity. We also know that there are some agencies who have encouraged their employees who are direct support professionals to invite their legislator to come see the kind of work they do for people with disabilities in the community. Because we know the DSP, as we call it, crisis is an opportunity, or this month is an opportunity to showcase what DSPs do in their job, and how they work with people with disabilities, and talk to them firsthand about what they do. So that is another opportunity and way to promote this month, and also talk about employment from the other side of working with people with disabilities. So we hope you'll participate, and please feel free to call me or contact me if you need assistance with this. We are hopefully getting participants across the state and in a variety of jobs, and would love to showcase your story too and help you make this possible. So keep that in mind. And it's all through the month of October. And I think we're moving on to talk about some employment programs and policies that we are involved in, and also want to talk about what our partners are doing. And Brooke is going to talk about that.
Yeah, and before since Carlin mentioned coffee, I do have to go back to that previous slide because that is a picture of Joel and his legislators at the Coffee Cats Cafe that's in Valley Junction. And so if you want to go meet your legislators and check out some kittens and some cats and have some coffee, I highly recommend you go check out that place. Joel's been working there for a few years now. And it's a very cool environment. And we were very excited that he participated in last year for our Take Your Legislators to Work Day. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about Iowa's Blueprint for Change. And I know we do have Eric Evans with VR on. He was on this, and I saw him sign up for this Capital Chats too. I believe he's here. But so Eric, if I do get anything wrong here, please stop us and correct us, and we can move on from there. But the Blueprint from Change, we have talked about this in previous Capital Chats. You may have heard it called the DIF grant, which stands for the Disability Innovation Fund grant. So this was something that Iowa received actually last fall. It's close to $14 million. This was a grant that was awarded to the vocational rehabilitation. And basically its goal is to make competitive and integrated employment the first and preferred outcome. And so when we're talking about competitive integrated employment, we do get asked, well, what do you mean by that? And really the definition for that is that it's work performed by individuals with disabilities just alongside other employees without disabilities, and that they're earning at or above minimum wage and getting the same benefits and opportunities for advancement that all the other employees are. They're doing the same work. And so that's what we mean by competitive integrated employment. So you'll hear us talk quite a lot about that in the next 4 years. This grant, it's just starting off in its second year. Some of the stuff that they're working on, you can see, is registering apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. They're working on transitioning from school to work, increasing expectations for everybody. So really the goal here is that everybody should have the opportunity and the fundamental right to have competitive integrated employment. And so it's expanding the number of people that are getting and keeping jobs. And it's also working for people that still hold 14C certificates to expand their choices and options for people. And when we're talking about 14C certificates, that's something that the Department of Labor offers organizations that people or employment agencies have to actually file for. And then when they have that certificate, they're able to pay people under the minimum wage. And so we're looking at correcting that and making sure that everybody is getting at least minimum wage, if not above. And so this really is a great opportunity right now for Iowa, because we've talked during several of these Capital Chats about the Justice of Iowa, or the DOJ report that's wanting Iowa to work on moving people from these segregated settings and into the community. And so this grant is a great opportunity to help do that. We know that we've got over 100,000 jobs right now in Iowa. And we really need to start looking at people with disabilities to start filling those openings. And so with this grant, with that almost $14 million that they can invest in that, it's going to start doing that. So again, that this people are really looking at employment as the first and only outcome for people. So a lot going on with this. This first year, they've done a ton of training with employment providers. They've done some customized discovery option with providers, which is what that is like doing a more individual approach to finding jobs and matching people and their abilities to what the needs of a business might have be. They've also been doing individual placement training, and both of these are evidence-based practices. And so Voc Rehab has been working with the USED and Griff and Hammes to do these trainings and to get this project off the ground. I should have mentioned that earlier. But the IPS model, the individual placement model, that's a model that's a supportive employment model for individuals that may be experiencing serious mental illness. So there's been a lot of training to basically, I think the first year, what I would say is they've been doing a lot of capacity building, getting providers ready. And they'll continue to do that over the next 4 years of the grant, so that we can make this more of a reality for individuals. And so they do want people's input. So they, vocational rehabilitation and the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities have formed what they're calling this collective impact forum. And they've hosted one already in the summer, but their next one is October 18th at 1 o'clock. It's a virtual meeting, and you can see the link there. And we can share this too. We can put it in the chat so you can able to register from that. But everybody's welcome. They want people's input on how we can best make this a reality, competitive, integrated employment for all. And I think now I'm turning it over to Carlin to talk about ending subminimum wage, which is also related to what we just were talking about with the blueprint for change.
Brooke, there is a question in the chat. Deb asked if part of the funds, the 14 million, goes to Easter Seals or other organizations. I don't know if Eric or somebody else could respond to that, or
well, I could just add, somebody else. Oh, good, Ben. I'm sorry. I didn't see that you were on here, Ben. So if I said anything incorrectly, please correct anything that needs to be corrected. So Ben did answer for those that said that. If everybody can see, he says we're working with providers and school districts to set up pilot programs right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything you said is right on, Brooke. So thanks so much for speaking to that. Yeah, I guess I'll just briefly say that within that collective impact on the 14th, we're going to be meeting
18th.
or sorry, the 18th rather, meeting with our the collective as a whole, and then we have 5 subgroups specifically, and those subgroups kind of refer to the 14 C's and the IPS and things like that. I'm working specifically or closely with a policy one, looking to kind of implement different policy things. Kelly is on here too, and she can speak to our kind of notion about really kind of looking into establishing those oh god, I always forget the name of what they're called, those big groups that kind of work together. Kelly,
Community of practice.
Yeah, community of practice, thank you. And then a couple other things too, so it's really exciting, and I can share some documentation, some notes from our last meeting if people are interested and want to email me at that email address. I can definitely share some stuff from our previous meeting, but thank you.
Yeah, and we are definitely working with Easter Seals on technology, and that's part of what Ben is working on with how do we implement tech first. Is that part of employment first? So Easter Seals is definitely a partner in that.
Thanks, guys. Did anybody else have any questions or before we move on? We did include this in InfoNet that just went out this morning. And it has all the links in there as well. So it'll be on the DD Council website under the newsletter. So you can find that information out too. And I have already posted the PowerPoint slides under the Capital Chat section of the website. So that's where you'll find the recording of this once it gets uploaded. That takes a little bit of time, but it'll be up there. I think I was going to talk about Carlin, you can add in if I missed something here on the U.S. Department of Labor announced earlier this week that they were going to be reviewing the rules related to what is called 14C. As Brooke mentioned, 14C is the section of the Fair Labor Standards Act that allows for the payment of sub-minimum wage. And so that is, they're going to be looking at that to see if there's a way, if they should be adjusting that or calling for a change to that, so that we are focusing on employment first and looking at competitive, integrated, not segregated settings. They do have a link to where these 14C certificate holders are in the country. And on that website, which was updated at the beginning of this month, there are 7 in Iowa. So in InfoNet, we also have a link to that. If you're curious who these organizations are, typically called sheltered workshop, is the old term for it. So the U.S. Department of Labor has said that they're going to be reviewing this. They are going to be seeking public comment, but they don't have that set up yet. So we will keep you tuned into that. But Iowa is one of 11 states that do not have some kind of employment first laws. Some states have done it through their legislature, others have done it through executive order, and we have not done either of those. So I know that's something that some of the groups that are working on this are interested in pursuing. And I know the DD Council has employment as a big part of their legislative agenda for next year. I just put some of the information on sub minimum wage up so you can see the differential. The average wage for somebody is less than half the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage. And those individuals earn 74 cents on each dollar paid to somebody without a disability. 16 states have jumped ahead and eliminated sub-minimum wage, but not Iowa, and 6 states are currently working on bills to eliminate it. So you can see that this is a growing trend around the country, and certainly if it's done at the federal level through the U.S. Labor Department or Congress, that would apply to everyone. So we wouldn't have to do it state by state, but it is something that states have jumped ahead to go ahead and do in theirs. So I think that leads us into kind of a discussion about some of the things that are we could consider as a state. And I know Carlin has some things to share about what the DD Council is looking at in terms of employment first. So I'll turn it over to you, Carlin.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, as was mentioned by Brooke on the slide that talked about the DIF grant or the blueprint for change, there are policy recommendations that we could be working on to support the programmatic side of moving to employment first and competitive integrated employment. And if you're interested in knowing kind of where Iowa is compared to other states, there's a very colorful, interesting map on the APSE website, which is the organization that promotes employment first. And it's apse.org. And as Amy mentioned, Iowa is not a state that has passed legislation or had an executive order that addresses either sheltered workshops or sub-minimum wage. So this is a policy priority for us. This coming legislative session, we'll be talking about this with legislators to educate them on why movement to employment first principles are better for people with disabilities. They're better for Iowa. And also, telling the stories of people who have moved to competitive integrated employment, and also, why there still are sheltered workshops and what it means for individuals who have that kind of work and then who are able to move into community employment. So that's part of what we'll be talking about in kind of our employment initiatives in the upcoming legislative session, which there also is, as Amy mentioned, work going on at the federal level. So we will be, keeping an eye on that, and also looking at how we can complement or mirror that maybe in Iowa. Along with that, there are other bills who have been introduced both at the federal level and in Iowa that address employment for people with disabilities. The Better Care, Better Jobs Act is a federal legislation that was introduced earlier this year. There's a great summary of it in InfoNet, which just came out today, and it would eliminate some of the or change some of the asset limits that cause individuals to kind of maybe barriers for people with disabilities who are employed and in what they can earn and save. And so that's a bill that's just one part of what that bill could cover. It has some great components in it that could really be impactful for people with disabilities who want to be employed. and who are trying to make a living through employment. Also in Iowa, and this was mentioned on our last Capital Chat too, Josh Turek introduced the Work Without Worry bill this past legislative session, and that would also work on the asset limits that preclude some people from working the amount of time that they would like to work. And those asset limits and kind of the barriers to employment that we hear people talk about a lot are some of the things that we're also going to be working on more in educating both people with disabilities who are working and what their potential is for earnings, as well as our policymakers, and how it can be a barrier, but they can be overcome in many instances also. We're also supporting the programs that are have been at work and are still working for people through voc rehab, vocational rehabilitation services, are doing an awesome job in their placement services. And we know that they have had some cuts this past year due to the government reorganization. So we want to highlight the work that they're doing for individuals with disabilities and getting them into employment, and particularly their self-employment program, which we understand to be a very popular program that could be doing more if they had more funding. And that's for people who want to start their own business and need assistance to do that. And they have that assistance available, and it includes financial resources to help people start their own business. So it's a great program that needs more attention and more resources, and we want to educate about how that can propel people, as well as other transition programs to help people transition from high school to community employment. That includes apprenticeships. There's a program that the governor's office the governor is supporting through Iowa Workforce Development that's going to have a new name that we are wanting to ensure that people with disabilities are included in Iowa Workforce Development programs too, as a targeted population for placement and employment, as well as scholarships for people with developmental, intellectual disabilities who want to go through a post-secondary program, whether in community college or in a four-year program, which is those programs are available and could use more support. So those are actually a short list of things that we could be working on, and we and will be working on, and we want to know more about what you think about these programs and issues, and if you have information to share, stories to share, resources that you could point us to as far as human resources, people that we could talk to too. We want to hear about that. So please share your thoughts, and we want to open it up today too to hear more from you. And I know there's a lot of chatting going on. Amy, is there chatting going on that lends to this discussion?
Not directly. Deb asked how the funding cuts to voc, how they find out about funding cuts to voc rehab and how it affects citizens. I don't think it's funding cuts. It's just we're not maximizing the federal match. Eric's on. I don't know if I said that correctly, but I know that we are leaving federal money on the table because we're not appropriating enough state dollars to match it. So there's more money available if we would, if our legislature would increase the amount of money going to voc rehab. So
this is Eric, and Amy, I think you nailed it. I'm Eric Evans with Vocational Rehabilitation, and we have some examples where we already brought up. Carlin did a good job with the self-employment program, but you know, if we can maximize that match, we could potentially expand that self-employment program, which has helped so many Iowans over the last couple of years for sure. Longer than that, but we've been really successful. Just to allow us to serve Iowans quicker and to avoid a wait list if possible. That could be coming just because we don't have the staff and the match to meet all the needs right now.
Thanks, Eric, for clarifying, and Amy also for putting it in, articulating it better. And we do hear those stories too, that people are not able to get the services that they're needing right now from voc rehab because there's been some changes that have come about in recent months. So we are, again, wanting to educate our policymakers on how that is affecting Iowans with the disabilities and especially affecting their ability to go to work. Anything else you would like to share?
While people are thinking, and feel free to jump in, or you don't have to raise your hand, just unmute yourself. Or if you're having trouble, raise your hand and we'll work on that. But I would just say that employment and has been a huge focus of the legislature and the governor. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. We've heard legislators talk about repeatedly getting people back to work. It was a message in the governor's condition of the state last year. I'm sure it's going to be an ongoing issue since we have so many job openings and not enough people to fill them. And what we've found, though, is people don't often just generally think about people with disabilities when they're talking about those employment programs. And that's what Carlin and Brooke are trying to do, is make sure that people with disabilities are a part of every strategy in workforce development and employment. So I think there is an appetite in the legislature for this. And so any other ideas you all have, I know when Carlin was talking about the REACH program, which is that one of those University of Iowa's transition program that they're talking about for scholarships, they found out that voc rehab might potentially be able to pull down federal dollars to match that. So there's a lot of creative ideas out there that wouldn't cost the state too much money and would align with the values of getting people into jobs. And then, as Carlin said, then the work without worry goes a step further and says that people with disabilities should be able to earn up to their full potential and without risking the services that allow them to get to work every day. So there's a lot of different levels, I would say, to some of the policy changes being discussed. One other thing being discussed is, even if we don't do legislation and executive order that would declare Iowa an employment first state, we could do a lot to just align even state or local government employment policies with those values. And some states have gone down that path instead of working through legislation. So there's a lot that I think could be done, but really not a lot, Carlin, right, has been first and foremost in the legislative discussion.
Right. And I think we need to find creative ways of talking about it. And we need advocates to also tell their stories, share what barriers are there that we need to educate on, and think about ways of talking about investing, making this an investment a priority. Especially, as Brooke mentioned earlier, there are 100,000 job openings right now in the state, and employers, we're hearing about a workforce shortage all the time. And this is a prime population to be tapping for that. We just need supports in place, and also employers willing to maybe make a culture shift in their thinking and in changing ways that they do their business, so that they can employ more people with disabilities. And that's part of the education also that will come through the DIF grant and what we'll be working on.
Yeah, Carlin, there's also a comment about transportation being a barrier and also home health care workers, which of course it is. In fact, transportation is an issue for everyone. I know rural areas have, some rural employers actually have provided transportation to bring people from other cities to their city to do that. So it's overall an issue, and I would say legislators aren't doing anything about that problem. To the exact question that they asked, what are they doing? But employers are doing something, and local economic developers are working on those kind of strategies. But public transportation is not highly funded here. I don't think it's gone up at all. I think it actually got a cut over the past several years, and there's a lot of federal funding in that. But you know, that, and I think all of this goes into the work that HHS is doing on ensuring a better community-based system is in place for people to truly have all of these options. And I think that gets to that home healthcare workers. You definitely have to figure out how to have enough people supporting and providing those supports in order to be able to achieve any of these goals. And that's a huge part of what HHS is working on right now. And we expect to see a big bill on for the next legislative session. At least we're going to get the suggestions pretty soon. Other ideas? We are going to open it up. But since I mentioned the home thing, I'm going to skip ahead really quick to what was going to be my last slide, but then we'll go back to opening it up. But I mentioned the work on developing a better community-based system, and it's being called HOME, which is Hope and Opportunities in Many Environments. And the HHS is going to be having hometown conversations around the state, and we have the dates, we don't have the details. So the last one at the end of November will be virtual for anyone, but we have these dates. We just don't know the details of time and where. But you might want to just note, if you're in one of these communities, just make a note on your calendar that at some point they're going to have a hometown conversation there, and to talk about the community supports and a lot of the stuff that you all are bringing up in this. Our next Capital Chat is October 27th, in case people want to mark that on their calendars too. And I'll go back to this at the end, but I just wanted to make a note of that they are going to be going out around the state to talk about community, what needs to be built up in the communities to help people be supported and live in those environments. So I will we can just turn it over. I know last time we had Representative Turek talk a little bit about some of the things he was thinking about for the next session. I don't know if he's on, but I did see Senator Sarah Trone Garriott is on, and I don't know if she wanted to say anything, but I'm going to kind of open it up for anyone who wants to talk about things going on, any topic, things you're working on. It's a quiet group today.
I don't know if the
Maybe
senator's still
to-
with us.
Oh, is she off now?
I think so.
Okay.
So briefly, in addition to employment first, we're really kind of focusing on technology first within the Iowa Blueprint for Change. And Deb, you had mentioned that kind of direct care providers and those workers that are going to be in the homes of people, there's that shortage, and we know that shortage exists. But what we're learning is that these technological supports can kind of fill those roles sometimes. And so if we are to think about advancing any sorts of policies and things like that, one of our priorities is definitely going to be technology first, and then building out that infrastructure that allows people with disabilities to take advantage of that technology, and hopefully then rely on direct support providers less and less. So that's just something to think about as well as we move forward with these kind of ideas.
Great point.
Can I just ask a quick question on that? How do you see, can you explain more about this technology helping people not rely on direct support when when the support is needed to get out of bed and get out the door? I think I'm missing a point here.
No, and so you're not missing a point. I mean, there are instances, obviously, when people need to be in the homes. There's no question about that. And so what we're hoping will happen here, and other states have done well to kind of give us some evidence that this will work, Missouri being one of them, is that by giving people access to technology that then requires less of that human touch, and then these individuals that are in these roles can then focus more on people who need that really direct one-on-one support as in their home physically. For instance, in Missouri, people have found that they're able to live independently by having video check-ins and things like that, and being able to connect with somebody virtually rather than having to have them in the home 24/7 or however much time they might be there currently. And they're finding that they're really enjoying that sort of independence that is provided to these technology things that maybe haven't been thought about and used previously. And so that's kind of the thinking behind that.
But just if I can jump in as well, since we're talking a lot about the blueprint for change here, I do want to stress, I know Brooke mentioned it at the beginning, that apprenticeship programs for direct support professionals is part of the blueprint for change as well. So in no way are we thinking that those DSPs could ever be replaced. They cannot. But thinking about how to maximize the time of the individuals, and also really trying to make sure that we're raising the status of those individuals doing that hard work, that we are giving them the credentials, that we're helping them think about all of the factors that go into that. And other part of that is helping people with disabilities become the direct support professionals. There isn't really a reason why they couldn't. So yeah, like you said, Deb, trying to think outside of the box and meet the needs of people where they are.
I
Will
muted
this conversation be available afterwards that I can go back and look at all these details?
Yeah, you mean this today, the chat?
Yes, will I be able to go online and watch it again?
Yes, we put the recordings up on the Iowa DD Council website, and so here I'll pop it in the chat. And it's just IADD Council, IowaDDCouncil.org / I think it's capital chat, or you can click on the capital chat tab. And it does take a little bit for us to upload it and clean it up and get it all ready to go, but we have both an ASL version and the recording, so you'll be able to see it. It should be up early next week. I'll put in the link here.
And we also do, I think, send out an email to everybody that's in our network with the recording as well too. So you'll know it's there too once you get the email.
And it's on the Iowa DD Council YouTube page. So if you're on YouTube, you could just go onto YouTube and watch it too.
While we're waiting to see if anybody has any other comments, I know that Carlin, and I think we've mentioned a couple of times now that if you do have a story to share, whether it be about one of the topics we talked about today or anything employment related, we'd love to have that. We're looking specifically too for folks that might have a story where they've were in a sheltered workshop and perhaps they were never given an opportunity to even go into competitive employment, and now they have a job now that's competitively employed. So if you're somebody like that, or if you know of somebody like that and wants to talk to us and share their story, just let us know, shoot us an email.
Hello, I'm Joel Vandermolen. I'm the vice chair of the Olmsted Consumer Task Force. And my first time joining here, I'm just learning, but I'm not sure if my story was helpful or not, but Rotary have helped me through college after I graduated high school back in 2003, 2003. And they helped me through school with providing funds for nursing care so that I could live on campus. And after that, I hired a job coach, as they required me to do. And unfortunately, I did not. Well, I graduated in February of 2003, or finished classes. And by June of that year, I had not found permanent employment, but was working a temp job at the moment. And Wilk Rehab said that because of the findings from the job developer, that it was unlikely I would ever find work because of being event dependent paraplegic, that employers would have too much of an increase in medical insurance. So therefore, I was told by Wilk Rehab to go live in a nursing home and not bother them again. So I did not find work in the Des Moines area, and now I technically work for my mother's business, but it's my own business of doing web development. I'm also a disability awareness speaker at grade schools and colleges, and I am a licensed part-time preacher and author as well. So I definitely do like to be able to work, but my experience with some things like Wilk Rehab, and yes, this was 20 years ago, but it still needs to be relevant of things to watch out for, I would say.
Hey, Eric Evans here, Voc Rehab. I'm really sorry to hear about your experience. I can tell you that that is absolutely not our philosophy now. Again, I apologize for that. If you ever want to talk to me directly, I would certainly welcome it, okay?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Joel. I echo what Eric says, that I think Voc Rehab has made a lot of changes just because I've been doing this for a long time, and I think their philosophy has changed for the better over the years. But I definitely hear that that was an awful experience for you, and I'm sorry that that happened.
Yeah, like I said, I know things change in 20 years, as I would hope so. If they didn't, well, then I got more problems. But yeah, that's my main story I've had, and I'm glad that there are changes.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. We love hearing, I mean, we don't love hearing that bad stories, bad experiences, but these stories really help us. And I think it also shows how self-employment is a real option too, because if somebody's not going to hire you, it sounds like you went ahead and kind of created your own employment. So I think that there's some of what the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council does in their legislative priorities is they share stories to show and back up the experience and the request that they're making. And so the more stories we hear, the better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on too.
Yeah. Part of why I'm here today is that the one of the groups I lead of the Olmsted Consumer Task Force is wanting to get more involved with legislation and helping you guys out in what you do. So hopefully see a representative of our group here more often.
Yeah, Joe, I appreciate that. I did talk to Paula Conley too about that. Maybe it was even last week, and you and I can maybe set up something offline to talk about too, make sure that we get the information the Olmsted Task Force needs to share with its members too.
Sure.
And then Joel, I think during the last Consumer Task Force meeting, you kind of talked about interest in a Hill Day, and I'm wondering if this might be a good kind of opportunity to connect with the DD Council and maybe explore opportunities to have some sort of collaborative work in establishing that Hill Day, and then going there, I think in January, is that when those typically are?
They're kind of whenever you would like to set them up, and we'd be glad to help you work on that and facilitate that during the legislative session, January, February, March.
And that'd be great.
Yeah, Burke and Carlin, I don't even know the answer to this. Did we set a date? Did you set a date for your breakfast?
We do. It's not a breakfast, even though it's in our calendars at breakfast. It's in the afternoon. So it's January 24th, I think, from 2 to 4. And it's a day that a lot of other disability groups are going to be there as well too. I think the whole week is called Independent Living Week. Do I have that right, Carlin?
I know that day is Independent Living Day, and then I think
Okay.
the whole week there will be other disability groups there. So that might be a good target date. That's early in this kind of in the session, but that might be a good date to target, or a good week to target.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a link for more information on that by chance?
We do not. No, we haven't started the registration yet for that. Might be just a little bit too early, but. And that's really, I mean, it's not really a registration date. That's actually just like the DD Council will have a table so we really don't need to register to come to it.
Any other thoughts in our final 6 minutes? We were on top of things today. Normally we're bleeding out into the end.
Maybe people are wanting to enjoy the beautiful afternoon with the warm weather.
I'm ready for fall.
It's going to be 90 this weekend.
I know I wanted to go to the pumpkin patch, but I'm not going to go to the pumpkin patch when it's 90. It ruins the mood for me. So. All right. Well, again, our next one's on October 27th, and everything's on the DD Council website if you want to register for it, if you want to find out more information, eventually information about the DD Council's
I just saw, Lisa, it looked like you just took yourself off camera. Did you have something you wanted to say before we close? Not to put you on the spot.
Sorry.
Yes, I was struggling with my mute button, I think. But I did want to share about Hometown Conversations, these dates, that if you live in these communities, please attend if you can. Director Matney and Director Garcia are going to be there, and we are working on getting our locations and our times finalized, and so those will be on our website soon.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm really glad that you have the dates out though, so that you can kind of mark it, reserve it.
Yeah, so save the date.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for being on, and we'll see you in October.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your participation today.
Have a good weekend, everyone.